I'm going to be working with Atlas with the rope a little bit more. So I've got a little bit scarier rope, and I do have a target out to work as a start button. So what I want to do is whenever Atlas touches the cone, then I'll move the rope and then I'll reinforce him. So I won't move the rope or touch him with the rope until he touches that cone. So I have a little bit scarier rope today as well. So he touches the cone, I'm going to move the rope and have it touch his legs. And then as that rope's touching his legs, I'm going to click and then reinforce. And then I'll wait until he touches that cone again before doing that behavior with the rope. So he has to touch it, so he just kind of puts his head down. I'm not going to do anything. So touch the cone, then I'll put the rope on. Then I'm clicking as the rope's going on and then reinforcing. So this kind of gives him a little bit more control. So he has to do this in order for me to move the rope. I'm not going to put the rope on him, I'm not going to touch him with the rope until he touches that cone. And like that time he didn't touch it, he just kind of put his nose close to it. I'm not going to do that either. He has to touch the cone, then I'll do that with the rope. So this gave Atlas a lot more control of the situation, and he seemed just happier about just doing this or doing whatever, if that's, eventually saddling and getting on him and stuff like that. This works really well. So specifically for him too, I felt like Castor was a little bit more like advanced, like he was pretty much cool with it anyway. He didn't really need to do that. I will use it like when I'm mounting, but that's about it. My pivot ended up on the wrong horse, um, but for Atlas, it seemed to work very well, and he just seemed a lot more confident. My pivot is going crazy again. When I was using that start button, so I really like using that with him. So same kind of process though. He has to touch it, then the rope goes on. So I probably should have moved sides and then had him touch it, um, versus he touch it and I move sides and then touch him, because there was kind of a long time span between there. So he touches the cone, same thing. And then this is a lot longer rope, so a lot scarier. And then it moves a lot more. It's not as stiff. So again, also scarier. And he's handling it really well. I love his body language. He's got his ears up, they're flicking around, like he's still swishing at flies, so he's not completely frozen. He's not in that freeze state, so he's not worried in that way. And he doesn't have any tense muscles. He doesn't have his head, his neck up. It looks pretty good. So I like all of this stuff. And I like how he's touching the cone as well. So he touches the cone, he just kind of does it in a normal, like, speed, and then lifts his head up at a pretty normal amount, and he kind of leaves it halfway down as well. If he were a little bit more worried, he would probably put his head down quickly and then definitely pull it up very quickly. So that's another thing that you want to kind of gauge, and that you'll see, like with me trailer loading him. I put a target in the trailer and he would kind of pull his head up really quickly. Or if you watch Penny's videos, she would do that in the beginning as well. And that just shows kind of that there's some tension in there. But especially like that time, really softly touching the cone and really softly picking his head back up. So all of this looks really, really great. And I was very skeptical in the beginning as well with using this, but it actually works pretty good. So this time I'm going to start just tossing the rope out. So that time I just tossed it out, then I waited for him to touch the cone, and then I brought the rope in. So he seems pretty solid with me tossing the rope on all of the body parts. Now I'm going to toss it away from him and then have it drag toward him. So that's another thing that was a little worrying to him, and I want to work on to prepare him for tying. Is if he were to pull back a little bit or just even back up, the rope's going to slide down, or if I untie him like that, the rope could slide down the panel, and I don't want him to be worried about that. So just making sure that he's cool with ropes being thrown around and kind of coming toward him, just in any different way. So just moving around in general. So again, body language doesn't change. Maybe he picks his head up a little bit faster, but I just need to kind of pay attention to that. And he looks really good. He wants to stay and participate. So again, nice, really, really nice with his head there. Pretty slow that first time. I don't think he touched the cone all the way. Yeah, it looks really nice. And doing that on both sides, and he's pretty much remaining the same. It's just the cone, brings his head up nice and slowly. Oh, he missed the cone, there we go. And then I'm going to get a little bit closer with the rope here. Kind of swing it around. That looks perfect. Yeah, he didn't move his head up or anything when that rope swung up over his head. So he's probably bringing up his head a little bit faster from the cone than I would like. So he probably does have a little bit of tension there, like that. He's a little bit quick, but he goes like from the cone to like keeping his head about level with, like, or his neck about level. So a little bit faster than I'd like, but keeping his head and neck level. But this is also the first time I've been using the start button, so he's got some things to learn. So overall, that looked a lot better. He was really slow with his head there. And I'm just going to give him a little jackpot on the ground to end that part of the lesson while I get my other stuff. And then I wanted to work a little bit with the mounting block. So just have him follow my hand target to get lined up with the block. And then I'll reinforce him when he's in position. Kind of move the block around. He's already used to all this stuff, so but me getting on the block's pretty new for him, so I want to highly reinforce that as well. And again, at this point in time, I had not completely found how great the start button is, but now when I do this, I would have started with the use of a target to use as a start button. But he's remaining calm, he looks good. Same kind of thing, like his body language doesn't change. Then I realized through the lesson, I was like, I need to use the start button. So I bring his cone over here. Unfortunately, you can't really see it because the mounting block's in the way, but yeah. Watching the behavior or the body language is also really important. So he touches the cone, I go up on that first step, and then I reinforce him. And at the beginning, I just kind of got off the block to reinforce, and then I want to feed from the block, and he seemed pretty good with that. Now I can go up on that top block. He seems pretty, or that top step, he seems really good with that. He's cool with eating out of my hand while I'm above him. That looks nice. And I want to practice this now where he's turning his head around to the side to get food from me before I start getting on him. That's a really important task for him to do. Sometimes they're not comfortable, and I want him to be comfortable with me feeding him on each side from his back, too. So that looked really good. I'm going to go ahead and have him turn the other way. So just follow my hand target. So you can see the target a little bit better on this side. So he touches the cone, I go on that top step, I click as I'm going up there and reinforce. And again, his body language looks really nice. So I come off, he touches the cone, I go back on, I'm clicking, and then reinforcing. Perfect. That looks really good. And the same thing with the rope, I don't get on the mounting block until he touches the cone. Very nice. Even when I'm all the way above him, his neck really doesn't change at all. He doesn't look tense in any way. He's ready to go get that cone again. A little bit quick bringing his head up from the cone, so I do have to pay attention to that. But again, this is the first time we're doing this lesson, so just pay attention to the body language though. I do like how slow he is to go and touch it. So now I'm touching him on the withers while I do this. That's the next step. Sometimes that's really scary because now you're touching them from high above. So that was another thing I wanted to work on. So I'm gonna work on sideways to me. That looks good. Like I had used it a lot in the beginning of his training and then I didn't use it for a while, so I wanted to kind of just give him a little bit of a refresher. And doing that without like objects in the way. So I do have like the mounting block, but pretty much everything else is away because he was struggling a little bit with side passing to like a fence or a gate. So I just wanted to kind of review that lesson and make sure that he's remembering and he's being reinforced for it so that he's going to want to do it more often in the future. And I'll ask him to come to the mounting block. So this is my cue here. You can see he was a little bit more hesitant to come toward the block. That was better. Now I'm just going to give him a jackpot on the ground, and then I just added a little clip at the end of him going back to his pasture for a while. He did not want to go back. He'd want to stay out in the yard and graze, so I just wanted to show a little update clip. Like, I just give him a jackpot when he goes back into his pasture, and that just gives him some motivation to go back in there.